Maseches Nedarim Daf Yud Dalid contains one Mishnah near the end of the Daf. The beginning of the Daf is explaining our last Mishnah, and we'll have a number of sugyas. We're going to explain why the Mishnah mentions chulin. There's no chiddush in that. The Gemara is going to discuss what the source is that you cannot make a neder by linking something to a davar ha'asar. The Gemara is also going to talk about a neder on a Sefer Torah, and then the next Mishnah will take us into the topic of conditional nedarim. So let's begin. We've seen in our last Mishnah a list of nedarim that do not work. Most of them don't work because they are a noder b'davar ha'aser. You're trying to aser something by linking it to an existing iser, which is innately aser min haTorah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asered, like chazir, not something which you asered yourself. And that's not something that works. The Gemara will say shortly why. But before we gave that list, we said that if somebody says that's not going to make a valid neder at all, and it's obvious because means that what I'm eating of yours is chulin, which means that it's mutter. And we've already said this in a previous parak, so why are we saying it again here? So we've already given one answer to that. The Gemara now gives a second answer. The Gemara says you're reading it wrong. It's not that there is a type of neder where he says chulin she'ochel that is a neder which is no good. The Gemara just means, the Mishnah means to be read as follows. The following nedarim are mutter like chulin, that I could eat of yours. The following things are mutter. There is no isser in the following things. And then it goes into the list of things that you can make a neder to a davar ha'aser which doesn't work, and therefore they're all mutter. And the word just means to say that it's mutter like chulin. The Mishnah just means to say that it's mutter like chulin. Why is it important to point out that it's mutter like chulin? So Gemara explains, because you may have thought that even though something is not a valid neder, you still have to get haTorah for the neder. There is such halacha sometimes, even though the neder is no good. Chazal said midrabanan, you have to be matir neder anyway. So Gemara says this is rejected. This pshat is no good. And the reason is because at the end of the Mishnah we have one of those examples. We say if somebody says to his wife, "Harei ata like ima," you're like my mother, and he wants to aser his wife on him in that way, that is not a valid neder. But he still has to get heter for it because we don't want him to treat it lightly, to be mekel roish with such a type of phraseology. So the fact that we say that clearly at the end means we have no havamina to say that in the beginning, and therefore you didn't have to say chulin she'ochel. You didn't have to compare it to chulin and say that it's really chulin. We have no time to think that way. Therefore, the Gemara says you have to really reject this answer and just go with our previous answer, which is that it was mentioned agav the other things, then there isn't really a chiddush to it here at all. Okay, next the Gemara wants to know what is the source of the halacha. You cannot make a neder by linking something to a davar which is innately aser, something which is innately aser, what we call a davar ha'aser. So Gemara says it comes from the pasuk which says ish ki yidor neder laHashem. So it's yidor neder. Yidor neder means he makes a neder on a neder. That means he's trying to make a neder by linking it to another thing which is nadur, which is aser because he made it aser. That you can do. But to make a neder on something which is innately aser, that you can't do because that's not something you asered. You can only make a neder which is like something else that you asered. You can only aser something which is like something else that you asered. You can say I'm asering this like I asered that. To say I asered this like Hashem asered that, you can't do. You didn't aser that. Hashem did, and therefore you can't make a neder on that. So Gemara says, okay, so if you're learning from the pasuk of Yidor Neder, so there's also a pasuk that says La Asar Isar. So you should learn from there that you can make an Isar based on another Isar. That pasuk should be teaching you that, which is just as good a drasha as Yidor Neder. And therefore you should be able to make a Isar on a Davar HaAsar. So Gemara says, no. The pasuk of La Asar Isar teaches me a different halacha that we've seen in Daf Yud Beis previously, where if someone, we have a brisa there that begins Isser ha'amar b'Torah, and that teaches me a type of Isser. Now the Ran points out that the chiddush of those Isurim that I mentioned there is that you're making a neder which is Asr only to you. You're not making something Asr to everybody. You're not using a carpet or anything like that. You're linking it to something which is Asr only to you. Like if you made a previous neder, you're not going to eat on your father's yard side, so that's a neder. And you could link it to that even though it's not Asr to anyone else. It was only an Isser to you yourself. Next, the Gemara discusses the last halach in the Mishnah, which is where we saw that somebody says to his wife, "Harei ata like ima," you're like my mother, and he means to say that you're usher to me just like my mother's usher to me. So that is not a good neder, but you still have to be matir neder. You still have to go to chacham and get a heter. So Gemara has a stira. We have a brisa that says that somebody who says to his wife, "Harei ata like kibsar ima," you are to me like the flesh of my mother, kibsar chaysi, flesh of my sister. Orla, like Orla, which is in Isser Kikoya Karam, like in Isser Kilayim, all these things. Loyar Maklum, the Mishnah says he didn't say, the Brisa says he didn't say anything, which implies he does not have to even be matir neder at all. So that contradicts our Mishnah that says that even though it doesn't work, he still has to go be matir neder. The Gemara gives two answers. The first answer is to say that when we say in the Mishnah that you need to go be matir neder, that's only midrabanan, and when this Brisa says lo maklum, it means daraisa. He didn't do anything daraisa. Second answer comes from Rava. Rava says that this Brisa is talking about a Talmud Chacham. A Talmud Chacham, we don't say midrabanan he has to go be matir neder, because the whole point of being matir neder is to make sure he doesn't get into this habit, and Talmud Chacham knows it's not the right thing to do. He's not going to get into this habit. And Amaretz, if you allow him to do this and have no repercussions, then he'll do it often, and therefore we say he has to go be matir neder midrabanan. Now, the Gemara wants to show that such a concept exists, that there's a difference in halacha between Talmidei Chachamim and Amaratzim, as far as whether a neder works or not. So the Gemara brings a brisa that says somebody who makes a neder by the Torah. He says, by the Torah I swear, or I make a neder the following thing. So that's meaningless, because we assume that he's swearing by, or he's vowing by, the physical Torah, the parchment and the ink. And of course that's a meaningless shvuah or neder to make. So on that, Rabbi Yochanan says, but he still has to go be matir neder. And Rav Nachman says it's only a Talmud Chacham who has to be matir neder. Other people do not have to. And there you see again the difference between being matir. You see the difference between a Talmud Chacham who doesn't have Gzeira and an Amaret who does. The Gemara now goes more deeply into the Brisa about someone who swears by the Torah, and the Gemara wants to explain how the Brisa works. So the Brisa says three cases. It says if somebody makes a neder and he swears by the Torah, that is, he swears by it, that is meaningless. It does not count as a neder. If he swears by what is written in it, that does count as a neder, because he's swearing by the names of Hashem, which means he's swearing by Hashem, which is a valid lashon of a neder. Now the third case is where the Gemara's focus will be, is where he says that he swears by it and by what is written in it. So that, the Brisa says, that works. The Gemara's kasha is obviously, if it works to say you're swearing by what is written in it, certainly it'll work to say that you're swearing by it and what is written in it. You're not taking anything away by saying it and what's written in it. What's the problem? So the Gemara wants to give three answers. The first answer is to say that there's a difference between where the Sefer Torah is positioned. The first two cases are where he's holding it in his hand. The third case is where it's not in his hand. The Gemara's words are that it's lying on the ground. I'm assuming that it's lying on the bima, but whatever it is, he's not holding it. So the Gemara says as follows: in the first two cases where he's holding it in his hand, so then he's definitely referring to the Torah that he's holding. If he says, I swear by it, he means by the parchment, no good. If he says, I swear by what is written in it, he means by the Shem Hashem, that is good. The third case is where he's not holding it. Then if he says, I swear by it, then it's certainly no good, like we said before. Even if he says, I swear by what is written in it, that would be no good, because the words in Hebrew are b'misha kasiv ba, just like that means what is written in it, it could just as easily mean what it's written in. And it could be referring to the text of the Torah and saying what it is written in, when it says b'masha kasav ba, what it is written in, it could be referring to the parchment again. Because since he's not holding the Torah, I don't know what he's referring to. He could be speaking about the text and saying where it's written, and therefore he's swearing by the parchment. Or he could be referring to the parchment and saying that it's what it is written in. Therefore, I don't know what's going on. So, in order for it to be clear, he has to say by it and what it is and what is written in it. And then I know that it refers to the parchment, and what is written in it refers to the Torah. He's covering all the bases, and therefore I know he's swearing by the names of Hashem that are in the Torah, the Sevel Shua. Now, the Gemara's second answer is to say that in all cases we're referring to where it is, he's not holding it, and it works in all three. And the language of the Brisa is just a zu ein sarach lomer zu. You're right. We don't have to say the last case. The last case is more obvious than the first case. We're just saying this is true, and that's for sure true. It's no good if he says by it, because that's a parchment. It is good if he says by what's written in it, because we assume he's referring to what's written in it. We assume he's referring to the name of Hashem. If he says it and what's written in it, that's for sure good. That's even better. That's clearer. The Gemara's third answer is to say we're talking in all cases where he's holding it. Now, the first case it's no good, again, because he says I swear by it, he's referring to the parchment. The second case where he says I swear by what's written in it, again, this case is good because he's referring to the names. And then the Mishnah says it and what's written in it. What the Mishnah means to say, it's as if he said, I swear by it and what's written in it. Because since he's holding it, it's clear that he's referring to, when he says it, he means the Torah. And when he says what's written in it, he means the words in it, the text, and including the names. And therefore it's okay. So it's just an explanation of the second case. The third case is not an independent case. It's an explanation of the second case. And it's saying the reason why the second case is good is because it's like the third case since he's holding it. We're now beginning the next Mishnah, which discusses what happens when somebody makes a conditional neder. So the Mishnah talks about where somebody says, I'm answering something, a konam. If I will sleep, I'll speak, I'll walk, or he says to his wife that I'll be mishamish you. So in all these cases, he's answering something on the condition that he does certain things, and his point is to answer those things. He doesn't want to answer the object, and therefore he wants to answer those activities. It's a way of answering those activities via a neder without a shvua. So the Mishnah Paskins, in all these, he has the Isser of Bal Yachal Dvari on him. He cannot violate his word, and he has to make sure not to violate what he said. Now, the Gemara discusses an interesting case, and the Gemara is going to try to apply our Mishnah to that case. The case is somebody says, Konam, my eyes are asered, so he's applying it to his eyes, asered from sleeping today, if I sleep tomorrow. That means if he sleeps, the Isser is that he's not allowed to sleep today. But the Isser only kicks in if he sleeps tomorrow. If he sleeps today and he doesn't sleep tomorrow, the Isser never kicked in. So he broke the Tanai, and therefore the neder never happened. If he sleeps tomorrow and he doesn't sleep today, then the Tanai works, but he didn't violate it because he didn't sleep today, just like he said. The only time he has a problem is if he sleeps both days. So what should he do today? So if Yehuda, in the name of Rav, says he should not sleep today, because maybe tomorrow he won't fulfill the Tanai, retroactively that he slept today is a violation of the neder. Rav Nachman says, no, he could sleep today. He just has to be careful not to sleep tomorrow. We assume today that he's going to stick to his Tanai and not sleep tomorrow. Says the Gemara, that's the machlokes. What would be if it was the reverse case? What would be if he says, I can't sleep, it's usher for me to sleep tomorrow if I sleep today? Is he allowed to sleep today? Or are we afraid he's going to break the neder tomorrow? So here, the conditional sleep is today. The vowed sleep is tomorrow. What happens then? So Gemara says here Rabbi Yehuda agrees. Rabbi Yehuda says he doesn't have to not sleep today because he may end up sleeping tomorrow. He doesn't have to make sure to break the condition today lest he end up breaking the neder tomorrow. That's all right. He could fulfill the condition today, create the neder for tomorrow, and that's fine. He'll just have to make sure not to sleep tomorrow. People can keep a neder. Therefore, we don't have a problem in this case, assuming he's not going to sleep tomorrow. However, in the previous case, our problem was that he has to keep the condition. That's not so sure. And by then, it'll be too late to back off on the neder, which he'll have broken already. Therefore, we say keep the neder today, lest the condition be fulfilled tomorrow.